want to just spend a little bit of time talking to you about how we help keep our kids off drugs. And maybe many of you listening know that possibly your drug use, or you know people that began early on in their life to experiment and use drugs, and that oftentimes that's when it kind of grabs us, when we don't know, when we're uncertain, and it sets up the struggle later on in life. And in today's society, maybe, not so much as, or comparative to the early 70s and that movement, but the drugs and marijuana use is hitting and reaching the younger generation. And that's the goal. I mean, the enemy's goal is to take us out when we're young, so that it becomes a stronghold early on, and it prevents us from being able to make good decisions and healthy decisions in life. And so I just want to spend a little time today just kind of sharing with you. It's actually a brochure I wrote, and just information off of that. I've tried to update it a little bit. Statistics are always behind. But I can only imagine, from what I've been reading and understanding, is that in these days of COVID, with the increase of depression and anxiety and the isolation and so much, it's really easier to kind of stay hidden from others, that the use of drugs and marijuana and smoking have all risen amongst today's youth. Possibly even why some of the depression rates are also increasing, because marijuana and drug use can really create a feeling of nothing's going to change, and kind of start a perpetual cycle of defeat. So, our world is surrounded today more so than any with obstacles, challenges, and different decisions, and lots of beliefs that are counter to what we in the faith teach. Christian parents, it is difficult, and it's really hard to stay in touch and on top of all these things. But the enemy wants to start with our children, and he wants to keep them from growing into committed believers, and those that in their teen years to make that decision to really follow after Christ, when they own their faith, that's when he would love to remove their faith from them and put obstacles in their way. Adam and Eve, they were lured away from God, and drug use and marijuana and all of those things are the way the enemy uses to lure our children away from the faith and away from that productive, vibrant life. One of the recent studies said last year in the United States, between 20 and 30%, which is of 12th graders, had already used or were using marijuana on a regular basis. That's a pretty high number, and that's, we're talking about, that's about 2020, so that's pre-pandemic statistics. They say that about 1 in 6 those that are addicted or have addictions, that 1 in 6 started as a teen. 50% of 12th graders use prescription drugs illegally, and more than a fourth of all 12th graders had gotten drunk within the past month, so some more regular use of alcohol. And so with 5,000 plus young people under the age of 21 die each year of injuries related to underage drinking alone. Some of the other stats say that using marijuana before the age of 18 become 4 to 7 times as likely to develop an addiction later on. And certainly lower grades in school, non-productivity has risen among those that are experimenting and dabbling in different substances in their adolescent years. One of our biggest problems is that denial. Parental denial is one of the first barriers that we have to overcome. And that's really, the mental health people today are really targeting parents more than they are targeting children, because the parents might see changes, and we just don't want to believe that our kids are doing that. We don't want to believe that it's going to be a problem or that it'll become an issue for them. Or maybe, you tried it at that age, or maybe you've introduced them to it to help take the edge off. So the big question is, what do we do to protect our children? How do we train them up to make godly choices regarding friends, entertainment, and what they do in their leisure time, especially right now when there's so little leisure interaction and opportunities than they can do? So here's just some of the brief things that I just think are kind of key for us to think about. First, how to help your kids say no to drugs. One, be a part of their lives. Spend time together, even when times are hard. Kids can make it when they know that adults in their life care about them. So this is about family time. This is about connecting with our kids, spending quality time with them, talking to them, getting to know their heart, getting to know their struggles. Know where your children are and what they're doing. Keeping track of your children help you protect them. Invite their friends into your home. Make your home a place where they want to hang out. That gives them fewer opportunities to be in more isolated areas where experimentation or, sneakiness can occur. Be watchful. Pay attention. Be attentive. Know your children's habits, their friends, know their grades, watch their attitudes, because anytime that you see a change in that means something's up. It's not always drugs, but it means something's up. So it's time to then go back in and take some time to sit down with your kids and just talk to them or address it. Set clear rules and enforce them fairly. Your house should have rules, and they need them to count on. It's one of the ways children feel loved and secure is when their parents actually put boundaries on them and care about where they are. And as much as they revolt against them, which is natural, it is also one of the things they desperately long for and need, because it is a sense of security and safety. Your children need to know that you care about them enough to discipline them and follow through on your policies. Failure to discipline, believe it or not, is a failure to love. One of the most loving things we can do is to discipline. Scripture says that God disciplines those he loves. So be a good example. This is certainly nothing. This is old school information, but you might not think, but kids look up to your parents. They do pay attention to everything we do. Show them how you get along with people, how you deal with stress, so they can learn how to do them. Teach them how to cope with life, cope with emotions, cope with stress. Demonstrate it. Don't hide it. Demonstrate emotions. Demonstrate walking through conflict with people. We need to set that example so that they learn that there are ways to do it and ways to feel, and it's not bad or not allowed. Teach your children how to refuse drugs. Kids often do drugs just to fit in with other kids. Help them practice how to say no if someone offers them drugs. I mean, this goes way back, just say no. We don't talk much about that anymore, but that is still a very important thing to talk, especially to the younger kids. What they are, what it might look like, how people might try to convince them. And, if you don't really know what it is, just say no. Make your home, this kind of goes back to the other, make your home a safe place. Don't have people around your house that do drugs or alcohol. Keep track of your medicines and your cleaning products. Again, that sets a tone, for example, for access. Just be very much aware. A lot of kids are using their parents' painkillers that are just sitting around, or some of their other drugs that they get maybe for legitimate medical uses, but if we're not attentive or keeping our prescriptions safe, even if they're very legitimate and used in the correct way, they do become a temptation for children. Live with integrity. If you claim you love them, show them. If you claim to be a Christian, be one. Any hypocrisy in a child's life from the adult teaching them will only create a model to repeat the same behavior in their own life. They will reject anything you tell them to do if you are not modeling it or living it. This is not do as I say, not as I do. This is, do as I say and I do. And oftentimes their view of Christianity, their view of faith, comes from the hypocrisy in the home. If my parents go to church and present one view and atmosphere or air or attitude, but then come home and are totally opposite, the children do not equate that with church is a good place or that church is the answer. So again, let them see you walk the Christian walk consistently by going to church, enjoying church, being involved in personal devotions. One of the best things I remember is after my parents became Christians is that, my father faithfully was at the kitchen table every morning doing his devotions. And that is still today. And my parents do it together, even still today. That was a huge model for us as kids, that their life changed when they came to faith and their lifestyles changed and they followed through and what happened in the home changed. Love your children, show affection, affirm them, encourage them, believe in them, avoid putting them down, constant criticism or lack of attention. That creates a wall. That creates uncertainty. That creates, we don't have the right to speak into them if we don't first love them in a demonstrative way and through our actions and attitudes. Don't fix everything for them. This is a hard one, but too many that go into drugs early discover that their parents will cover for them and make consequences go away. If they have done something wrong, we need to understand how to correct them and have them live with consequences of their choices. Now, this doesn't mean we have to certainly take it to the extreme, but this is the age where children need to learn that poor choices have consequences so that, they are not getting off. And that just allows them to continue because they begin to believe that I can do whatever I want because my parents will bail me out. And honestly, parents, this is sometimes because we're covering for ourselves and for our own inadequacies and what will people think or say about us if they know our kids are have been experimenting. Well, they'll say a lot less if you actually discipline them and nip it in the bud and handle it in a biblical, problem-solving, helpful, let's learn and grow from this kind of way. And how do you do that? Educate yourself. Learn the signs of drug addiction. Never assume your family and children are exempt. And know what's out there, what's going on today, what's in your neighborhood, what some of the dynamics are, what's the new words, know the lingo. Oftentimes, there are all kinds of terms out there for drugs so that they can be used without other people understanding what they're talking about. That includes in text messages, what your kids are texting and are they communicating and asking for things that you're like, I don't know what they're asking for. I don't know what this thing is or what they're asking them to bring them or let's go do this or that. And you're like, I have no clue what that is. Find that out. It might be, sort of their language for using substances or doing things that are just really detrimental to their health and to their well-being. Addiction doesn't discriminate. It cuts across all socio and economic levels, races, and religions. It can happen to any family. Believing it can't possibly happen in your family will be the biggest mistake you might make in child rearing. So what are the warnings? So those are the things you need to do. What are the things you need to pay attention to? Physical signs, bloodshot eyes, unkept appearance, more tiredness, slurring of speech, lack of eye contact, lack of motivation. Your teen might start using candles, incense, or, now all of a sudden they're really into body sprays to cover up any kind of smells or use. You might find unusual items. They're starting to buy a lot of mints, mouthwash, chewing gum more than ever than they have in the past. And remember, the more you know what their habits were, the more you'll be able to tell when this is new, this is almost extreme. And then drugs are hidden in a lot of places, including everyday items, computer mouses, aspirin bottles, book bags, hidden compartments, under the mattresses if they have like a hard wood frame, more of a box frame, pillowcases. So don't be afraid to look. Don't be afraid to check if need be. Maybe you'll start noticing that you've got things missing. Maybe money in little pieces are missing. Again, pills of your own might all of a sudden be disappearing, and you're thinking, well, maybe I took more, or you don't know what happened. And so the first people that the kids are going to reach towards is going to be the family members. Especially if they don't have a lot of cash and they're younger, that's where it starts. It starts at home in the family medicine cabinet. So when drugs are involved, and in more than one realm, appearance, social circles, school performance, and interests are typically affected, thus allowing parents to discern between potential substance abuse problems and normal teenage irritability. And that's Dr. Stephen Mattson said that, and he's just like, pay attention, because early signs that something's going wrong in their life, or in their attitudes, or in their choices, begins through observation. So if you realize then that your child is having difficulty with drugs, get yourself help immediately. It's important for you to find out exactly how big and ugly the problem has become, and you might need help in making and taking those steps, and encouragement and a place to communicate yourself. Be willing to deal with it directly. Don't say, maybe let's just wait and see. Be direct. Talk to your pastor. Seek help from people who have maybe dealt with it with their kids, or are treating drug problems. Maybe you can go to some of the groups that are out there for helping kids. There are websites that you can get a lot of information off today. Find a support system for you before you just plow in and tackle this problem, because how you tackle it will really determine the outcome and the relationship you have with your kid as you move forward. Above all, I don't know if I can leave it here any clearer. Remember the story of the prodigal son. Often, we must love by allowing our children to face the consequences of bad decisions and choices. We remind them that we love them, and that love is deep and secure, but that you cannot help them or watch them destroy themselves. Hold on to hope through prayer. Keep watching for reconciliation and restoration when your child is ready and comes knocking. Hardest thing, I think, sometimes is that, the children have gone off and said, I'm going to do what I want to do, as they've gotten into the, late teens, early adolescence, early 20s. And, parents just then put a block, and it turns into anger rather than, an openness when they actually come back and say, hey, I want help. I tell you, one of the best things sometimes we see here is when some of the younger women, in my case, come in their early 20s, and they've had severed relationships with their parents, but their parents are the ones that pointed them in the direction. The parents might even be the ones that bring them. I'm not always saying you can tell that there's love and warmth there, but the parents are helping and assisting and making it possible for them, even, helping with kids or covering some of their finances that they might have gotten in trouble with. If the child actually comes and says, hey, listen, I'm done, I need help. That's, even if they've walked away from us like the prodigal son, when they come home and want help, we need to embrace and open them up with open arms. You can find more information on our website, americaskeswick.org, and there's a lot of websites out there. Just how to help. You can just Google how to help your children on drugs, kids and drugs, kids and marijuana today. Just, we have a plethora of information at our hands as parents. So it's really important that we take time to do our research, be educated, and be the best parents we can to walk our children through some very trying and uncertain times where things are really coming at them left and right. For some of you listening, this is so that, we don't want to repeat. We want to break this cycle with us, and we might want to break the cycle with our children. And how we handle that is one of the key things that happen. Have a great day.